Welcome back to our spoiler-full section of a Knives Out review. If you haven't seen our spoiler-free one, watch that one first. And then come on back here.
Do not watch this video if you have not seen Knives Out. You really shouldn't see that movie after it's been spoiled. It's too much fun to watch not knowing what's going to happen next. So go see the movie, then come back and you can fight with us in the comments about whether we were right or wrong, or add your own thoughts. But we're going to be breaking down some of the strengths and weaknesses we saw in the film that you have to have seen the film to understand. So that's where we're at. Knives Out, of course, is Rian Johnson's written and directed murder mystery starring a whole bunch of awesome actors and actresses, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Perfect.
Let's jump in. Let me say this. This is one of those twisty, complicated plot type movies that works because when you watch it the second time, you will watch it differently than you did the first time. That's the way to do it. Rian Johnson did it the right way. It's not just, the ending is not just a total shock, came out of nowhere kind of an ending. There are clues along the way as to who done it and how they done it. And so that's just the right way to do it.
For sure.
It's solidly put together. There's lots of clues in there along the way about how it all plays out and foreshadowing, and it's just really well done. So kudos to Rian Johnson for pulling that off.
One of the other Garner brothers, he talked about the Sixth Sense, and he said the reason the twist ending at Sixth Sense works is because throughout the movie, he was telling you the whole time the twist ending.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with The Prestige.
Not that this movie has a huge twist ending.
That's
it's a
true.
whodunit, right?
That's true.
So
But
it's just a mystery, and then at the end you realize whodunit. So it's not like it's super shocking or anything. It is written like The Prestige or like The Sixth Sense. It was all written out and planned, and it foreshadows the ending, and it's all very good.
And we don't have to use somebody did something anymore because this is the spoiler section.
That is true.
Specifically, I wanted to mention at the end of the first act, he shows you the scene where the murder takes place. And what? Who does that in a murder mystery movie?
Yeah.
And immediately after that happened, I thought, well, I don't know what kind of movie this is anymore. I don't know what to expect from this point on because
we just watched him die.
I didn't think that for very long because pretty soon I was laughing and having a good time.
Yeah, and that really is one of the brilliant things about the film. You see Christopher Plummer's character kills himself about a third of the way through the movie in a flashback. You see it. And you see which character was there with him. And
it's the only person who doesn't have motive.
Yeah.
And she switches the pills and gives him way too much
morphine. Yeah.
100 milligrams of morphine.
She thinks she's given him a whole bottle of morphine and tells him, oh no, you only have 10 minutes to live. And so he tells her what to do so that she doesn't get caught, because he really loves her. And he tells her how to get away with murdering him, basically.
Right, because he's a murder mystery novelist. Right off the top of his head, he says, this is the plan. This is how we get away with murder. And it's flawless.
And you see him kill himself. And your point is very good. A third of the way through the movie, it looks like you know what happened, right? And as the movie goes on, it's brilliant because the main character doesn't realize she's in a murder mystery. She thinks she's accidentally killed her employer and that he had to kill himself as a result. And so she's trying to hide the fact that she's basically killed her boss. She doesn't realize until well into it that there was something else afoot. And there are hints along the way that it wasn't just cut and dried like that. Like the fact that she can't find the medicine you have to give someone who's had a morphine overdose, and she's ransacking her purse and she can't find it anywhere. That should be a clue to you. Someone had sinister motive. Somehow, someone got her to accidentally poison him. So that was really well done. It made it really unpredictable to do it that way.
It sure did. Also, when you're making a murder mystery, what can you do to make it more difficult for yourself if you're writing it than make the main character throw up every time she tells a lie?
Oh my gosh, one of my favorite lines. I'm probably going to mess this up. Daniel Craig, he introduces the fact that Marta, the personal health care worker, What does he say? I've heard you have a regurgitative response to untruthin'. Something like that. Yeah. So fantastic. She throws up when she tells a lie. So fantastic. It adds so many funny moments throughout the film, but it also really complicates things because she's trying so hard to hide the truth from people because she believes she's killed Christopher Plummer's character, Harlan. That was a genius stroke. I don't know if that's a thing. That can't be a thing. Throwing up.
No, definitely not. But it is great. It's just great.
So great.
I feel like there's a couple things in this movie that shouldn't work, and that's kind of one of them. But it does.
It works
it's
brilliantly.
So funny. What was Rian Johnson's intentions in making this movie?
Like I said in the other video, I think his main intention was to write a really fun, twisty story, and he pulled it off with aplomb. He does have some moral messages along the way. I think the main moral message is you should be a good person. I think Marta is the example. It's because of her goodness that she ends up winning at the end, right? She's just such a good person. And so you really want to root for her, and you can because she really is a good person. I love that message. In today's world especially, be honest, be good to people, and it's probably not always true that when you live that kind of life, you're going to come out on top. But it's still worth living a life like that. I mean, you come out on top in a lot of ways, even if it's not, inheriting a massive sum of money in an awesome house.
Which, you might not get worldly gain from being a good person, but I think you'll still end up on top. I also kind of wanted to talk about some of the political conversations that he had in the movie. Every single person that lives in this house thinks Marta is from a different country
than she actually is. That's true. Every
do
time
we
they
even
say,
know where she's actually from?
I'm not sure.
I don't think we do.
Every time somebody says where she's from, it's a different Latin American country.
And
which clearly means they don't care where she's from.
Right.
She's Latin American, and that's all.
But I think it also means that she now kind of represents everyone who wants to come live in America and thrive and be successful. And
which she didn't do. She's not an immigrant. Her mother is.
Right.
She's a U.S. citizen, born and raised,
and her mother's an illegal. And it's funny because Don Johnson's character says, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have anyone come into the country. I'm just saying they have to do it the right way. And they say, right, Marta? You're from Paraguay or whatever. And then he says, and she did it the right way, right? But that her mom is illegal. So he's sitting there using this person as an example. He's like, this is a good person who's doing good things in the country, and they did it the right way. When really, they kind of cheated. But they're not a problem in America. So it was an interesting conversation. I also think that they were able to take the left side and the right side and kind of show that
nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Most of the Thromby family are hardcore Republican.
Sure, even the child is a Nazi child.
Yeah, he's a Nazi child. Yeah. So they are portrayed in a pretty negative light politically, in my opinion. I do think that they were portrayed pretty ignorantly about all issues, international and immigration, and I felt like they were portrayed as kind of a bunch of intolerant dummies in that respect. But there are other characters in the film, like the daughter-in-law and her daughter are really progressive, really liberal, and they're not portrayed as perfect people either. In
fact,
I
feel like they're portrayed as goofy and crazy to the left, as the others are portrayed off to the right.
And they're all leeches. Everyone in the family is a leech. So there's no clear liberals are the good guys or conservatives are the good guys. The ideologies are there all along, but it doesn't really determine who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, unless you want to say that Rian Johnson is setting up immigrants as good guys by making Marta the real hero and making her win at the end.
And she totally does at the end of the movie.
Yeah,
when
she wins huge.
Sipping on the coffee with the blanket over, looking over the...
And the mug says, deck. This is my house on it.
Yeah.
there's also some commentary there about money and how you make it and how you get it and what it does to you depending on how you get it. Most of the Thrombey family are just freeloading, lazy, do-nothing losers. Not Jamie Lee Curtis's character. She's hardworking, but she got a loan, $1 million loan from her father.
Loan.
There's a little bit of
sounds
Donald Trump in there. So anyway, I think it's obvious watching the movie that Rian Johnson is a liberal guy. But
Anyway,
I mean, there are things about every character that are, bad and not bad.
Sure.
Except for Marta, who's all good.
Who's
Unless you
perfect.
count her vomiting as a negative.
I thought it was interesting. At the end of the movie, you kind of discover it's not actually a murder mystery. So I'm going to spoil just everything right now. There's that first scene we talked about where she mixes up the medicine. But what happened beforehand is Ransom, who has a weird name too, by the way. But Christopher Evans' character, he switches everything beforehand. So when she accidentally switches it...
She's actually administered the right dosage.
Right. And so it ends up that Harlan Thrombey is not going to die in...
10 minutes. Yeah, you take that much morphine, you're going to be dead in 10 minutes. That's going to be an important issue.
So that means he just kills himself,
Yeah.
which means it really is a suicide. It's not a murder mystery.
But he did kill the maid.
He did. That's how they got him.
He's
I
a
remember.
murderer.
They did, and Blanc brings that up in the movie. He does.
Benoit Blanc.
That's right. So setups and payoffs. Tell me the ones you saw and noticed.
It's the game of Go. Christopher Plummer's character and Ana de Armas's character play Go. And the way she plays Go, I mean, he says, you always beat me, and she says, well, I'm not trying to beat you.
I'm just trying to make a beautiful
trying
picture.
to make a nice picture. Yeah, something like that. And that's basically how she wins in the end of the movie, right? That game of Go it's the bird trick from Prestige. The Prestige tells you the twist at the end with the bird trick at the beginning.
There's also a hint in the middle of the movie to that scene as well. When she's at dinner with Chris Evans, after she tells him how everything went and how she accidentally poisoned him, but he actually knows the full story.
He knows that she
He
actually
sits
didn't
there
poison him.
and says, Thrombey told me that you're better at Go than I am. And that seemed really strange for him to point that out to me, but now I think I'm starting to understand. And I don't think we understand at that point. At that point,
No.
we're like, what is he talking about? This is important. And both of them are
And it
callbacks
does
to
end
that
up being
game.
important, yeah.
And then at the very end of the movie, Daniel Craig talks to her about how she's just a good person and says that the reason why she won was because
She wasn't trying to win.
She wasn't
was
trying
just
to
trying to
win.
be good.
Yeah. And it's pretty great. I loved that.
That is great.
Did you have any others you wanted to...
Just when she climbs down the exterior of the house and the super old
Oh my
grandma
gosh, the old
sees her
grandma's so
there.
great. I'm so glad you brought her up.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And she says, Ransom, are you back again? And when you first see the scene, it's like, it's just a funny moment. Because you think she's busted, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's the senile grandma. She's totally okay.
Also, I think the reason the name is Ransom is probably for that moment, because it took me a while in the movie to realize that Ransom was somebody's name. Because when she said that, I did not connect that to Christopher Evans' character until they showed us at the end. That she said his freaking name right there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because he had just, it turns out he had just climbed up there and done the same thing. And
so she saw someone else
she
climb
saw
down.
someone else climb
and
down,
thought it
and
was
she thinks
Ransom
it's
again.
him again. And so she says, Ransom, is that you again? So that's, and they do spoon feed you that one at the end of the movie. They show you that again to show you look, we really did set this up. This isn't a cheating kind of a twist. It's not like we just threw something in at the end. They were really building it along the way. And watching Chris Evans in the restaurant when he says, huh, and he says the thing about Go, and you can tell, on a second watch, you're going to be able to tell he's chewing over the fact that she actually had administered the right medicines and he killed himself anyway.
Right.
And now Chris Evans' plan isn't going to work because
Amazing.
the toxicology report is going to show that he killed himself and she didn't, and so therefore she will get all of the will and all of that stuff. So Yeah. There's a lot of good setups along the way. There's probably a lot more. We need to go see it again.
I have a few more here I want to talk about as well.
Go.
I don't know if you remember this, but on the night when Harlan dies, he's talking to Marta, and he's talking about ransom while she's doing that. And he picks up a knife.
Which is the knife he'll kill himself with.
Yep. He removes it from the sheath and says, "There's so much of me in that kid. Confident, stupid, protected, playing life like a game without consequences until you can't tell the difference between a stage prop and a real knife."
And the fact that he kills himself with that very knife, and then Ransom tries to kill Marta with a stage prop at the end, like, there's a lot of it. That's all very well written. Very
Fantastic.
well written.
Yeah. And that scene when he tries to kill Marta at the end is just so funny. The whole time I was
When
like,
she barks
I was like,
right
what
in
the
his
heck just
face.
happened? Yeah. Well, when he's on top of her and the knife is in
Yeah.
her, I was like, what just happened? And then he pulls it up and it's just squeaking. He's like, oh, crap. And then she's just...
Yeah.
It's great.
It is great. And set up and paid off beautifully.
Yes. The secret notes. At the very beginning in the interview, yes, Jamie Lee Curtis mentions that, I think her name is Linda in the movie, and she mentions that...
She says you have to play his
Right,
game.
right.
If you want to get close to Dad, if you want to have moments with him, then you got to play his games. And his game with her apparently involves invisible ink.
Right.
So, and
And
that's
so
paid off at the end.
Don Johnson's character is being told that he's being cut off is because Don Johnson is cheating on his wife, on Thrombey's daughter. And he says, I'm going to tell her tomorrow. And if you don't tell her, then I'm going to give her this note. And then later, there's another setup payoff situation here that is not super obviously like given to you. I had to look this one up. I can't take credit for this. But Richard is the name of Don Johnson's character. After Thrombey dies, he goes into the office. He finds the note. He opens it up, and it's blank. And he just kind of laughs. And then he feels like a fool, and he grabs a baseball, and he throws it out the window of the office. Remember that?
Yeah.
Then, the next scene, Detective Blanc notices the baseball, and he picks it up. The next day, the dogs come to Blanc, and they drop a piece of wood, and he throws the baseball. But before the dog comes back, he notices the piece of wood and gets distracted. The dog still has the baseball in his mouth a day later. At the family gathering, requested by Marta, they thought she's going to renounce the inheritance. The dog sits next to Linda, which is Jamie Lee Curtis's character. Linda recognizes the baseball and takes it from the dog. She goes to put it back in the office
And finds the letter.
and finds the letter.
Brilliant!
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. So the whole reason she finds the letter was because her husband threw that baseball out the window.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So awesome. That's what I wanted to cover for the setup and payoffs. There's probably more. If you know some, tell us in the notes, because I'm sure there's more.
Now, before you go thinking that this movie is nothing but brilliant, it has two humongous flaws. You want to talk about the first one?
Yes, because I don't know the second one.
Okay.
But there was, coming out of the movie, there was one thing that was bugging me, and I think it's kind of nitpicky, but at the same time, it does create a problem. And I couldn't quite make sense of the whole situation where Chris Evans' character is talking to the maid. So there's a scene, the first thing you see is that Marta shows up to talk with the maid, and when she gets there, the maid is dead. And then she kind of comes to for a second and says, "You did this," or something. And then she tries to save the maid's life. What you find out later is that Chris Evans was there like an hour before or something.
I think it's like 2 hours before.
And he administers
The morphine.
the morphine to kill her, which is, we were told earlier, takes 10 minutes. But then 2 hours later, Marta shows up.
She's alive to tell
and
Marta.
Yeah. So, and I feel like that is really nitpicky, but I mean, it is something that I wasn't even trying to find, but I could tell something was wrong when I came out of the movie, and it was a little thing that just kind of bothered me.
Yeah. Well, and the problem was that Chris Evans had to be with Marta in the time leading up to before Marta goes and finds the maid, right? And so if Johnson had written it differently so that Ransom could have been there only 10 minutes before, that would have worked better, because it is, I don't think it's very nitpicky. I mean, if you're writing a twisty movie and everybody's supposed to walk away thinking it's brilliant, it's kind of obviously wrong to make such a big deal about 10 minutes when Christopher Plummer, I mean, he kills himself because of it. And then later in the movie, it's not 10 minutes. It's 2 hours, 2.5 hours later that she's still alive. So could he have had time to have an ambulance come and save his life? Absolutely he could. So that sort of, it really takes the legs out of what happened earlier in the film.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with the movie is this. Ransom is, according to everyone in the movie, like this super lazy, do-nothing leech of a man, right? He knows nothing. He does nothing. He has no work. He's not gone to school. None of that, right? Yet somehow he knows how to switch the medicine from one bottle to another. I mean, first, he knows that entire bottle of morphine is a lethal dose. How many normal people knew that? I didn't know that before the film, and I have a doctorate. Not in medicine, but I'm an educated guy. So, like, here's Ransom, who has no education, who does nothing. And he knows that, I mean, maybe he's a drug addict, so maybe he would know that. I don't know. But he knows that, first of all. He knows that. And then he knows that the other medicine that's in the bag is going to save a person who's had a lethal dose of morphine. And he knows to take that away. And he knows how to use the syringes to pull the morphine out of its medicine bottle and then pull the other medicine out of its bottle and then switch them into the other bottles. So he knows how to do all of that. And he's this character who's supposed to be a do-nothing, know-nothing guy. Like, how did he know that? And according to the film, he wouldn't have had time to figure that out. Like, how did he know what medications his grandfather was even on in the first place?
It's true.
He leaves the house.
He's in the car, driving around, and that's how he
leaves the house and then comes back before he's gone anywhere. He hasn't had time to do any research, and somehow he knows that his grandfather's medicine is upstairs in that game room, that he's taking morphine, and that a lethal dose of morphine will kill him, and he knows exactly how to do the whole bottle switcheroo. So all of that is stuff that, you know, I would expect you would have to have some pretty specialized training to know how to do all of that. You'd also have to know what medicines he was on. In the end, I just can't buy that his character would have known how to do all of that. And so in that sense, it didn't work. That's a pretty big plot hole, in my opinion. But the movie was super fun. That's not enough for me not to enjoy the film. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was twisty and fun, unpredictable, funny. So funny through the whole thing. So I still highly recommend it. In the other video, I gave it 4.5 demon golf balls out of 5. I probably would have given it 5 if I didn't see such a glaring problem with the story.
Yeah.
In the end, you know, if you want to believe that Ransom is like a lazy genius, then great.
Well, I was thinking too as well, like, we don't know about morphine and its lethal amounts and whatever, but I feel like there is some stuff we know about medicine that we wouldn't have known if it wasn't because somebody in our family was taking it.
Maybe.
And
maybe, but here's the other thing. Christopher Plummer didn't even know that morphine was lethal if given in too much of an amount. And he's a murder mystery author. So, like...
Yeah, he even says, this is a very
he's taking notes like,
this is fascinating.
I need to write this down. So the murder mystery guy is impressed with her saying, this is a way to kill somebody.
There you go.
How in the heck is Ransom then?
You got me there, because
it does say at one point that, like, Ransom did some research for some of his books and stuff like that. But if it had ever been, if lethal morphine doses had ever been one of those things, then Christopher Plummer would have known. So,
and it would have explained this whole problem. You just solved the problem right there. Because if Christopher Evans had done the research on the book that talked about the morphine, problem solved. Ryan Johnson, give us a call next time you make a movie.
We'll proofread your script and make sure you don't have any huge glaring plot holes.
Oh, gosh.
Anyway, it's great.
It's a really good movie.
I never could have written a movie like that.
Never.
So good. So good.
It is amazing.
So we brought up a couple of problems, but it's still an excellent film. Still 4.5
yeah.
demon golf balls.
Yeah.
Out of 5.
Yeah. It was nearly perfect, I would say. And it was just a great time to go see. I highly recommend it. Next time, we're doing another Rian Johnson movie. We're going to do The Last Jedi in preparation for The Rise of Skywalker, which is
coming out in a week from the filming of this video.
I hate that name, by the way.
The Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah.
Well, yep.
Okay.
All right, that's it for us.
Yep. See you next time.